The new Yamaha FZ09 engine is one of the most exciting developments to hit U.S. legend car racing since its founding. For the first time, an affordable, long-lasting, water-cooled engine is available for competitors to use in their cars, saving them time and money. The lower maintenance costs and extra longevity ensure competitors can race for longer periods of time between rebuilds and replacements. Of course, thousands of XJ1250s are in the wild, and this video is designed to assist you in changing over your 1250 car with a conversion kit to fit the FZ09. Before we begin, we ask you to take your time, have a friend or two to help you, and be sure to follow all necessary safety precautions, such as wearing safety glasses and securing your car on proper jack stands. You will need an assortment of tools like these. We recommend gathering these and having them nearby before starting the project. The FZ09 conversion kit comes with everything you'll need to complete the job, down to bolts, washers, and hose clamps. We've created this video using one of these conversion kits. Before installing the engine, you need to prep the firewall for the new components this power plant needs. Let's start with the terminal blocks. The center of your driver's right terminal should be 4.5 inches from the side of the firewall and 10.5 inches down from the top of your cut firewall. The second terminal should be 6 inches from the side of the firewall. Hold or clamp the block up to the firewall and mark your holes. Remove the block and drill your holes from the terminal blocks. If you do not have a step bit, a standard 11/16 inch and 3/16 inch drill bit should do the trick. Use a wrench to secure the blocks with the included lock nuts. Next, we will install the level switch. Holes for the shelf will be located approximately 2 inches below the bottom of your wiring harness hole. Use a standard 1/8 inch bit for these and attach the bracket with simple rivets. The level switch acts as a cutoff in case of a major accident by preventing the engine from continuing to pump fuel. It's imperative to ensure this bracket is level to the ground, or it may result in performance issues. Orient the switch with up facing the sky and attach the switch to the bracket using the included screws. Let's move on to the throttle linkage. The new linkage is much longer and will utilize your original mount, but may need to be spaced out from the frame rail slightly. Use washers or bolt spacers to do this. Now, remove your old clutch master cylinder and pedal assembly. Since the new engine has an electronic clutch, you won't be needing it. Utilizing the old holes and included hardware, secure the included clutch pedal to the same place on the firewall as your master cylinder. Finally, measure 3 inches below the center of the lower clutch pedal master cylinder bolt. Again, utilizing the rectifier block as a pattern, mark 2 holes, drill them out, and then attach it to the firewall with the included hardware. This rectifier should be approximately 1 inch inboard from the edge of the firewall. Once you've completed all the firewall prep, you're ready to install the engine into place. Before dropping the engine onto the chassis, measure back 19 3/4 inches on your frame rail. Mark this as the center of your engine mount forwardmost hole. Using either the engine mount or a tape measure, mark the second hole 2 1/8 inches further back at 21 7/8 inch. Clamp the engine mount to your frame and using a 5/16 inch drill bit, drill the 2 holes into your frame. Using the included hardware, secure the mount to the chassis with wrenches, sockets, or an impact wrench. Next, attach the left side motor mount to the engine, but do not tighten it down all the way. You'll need the flexibility to properly align the motor once it's dropped into the car. Using an approved hoist or other similar device, gradually lower the engine into the frame. Install the bolts through the right side motor mount and attach the nuts, but do not yet fully tighten. Utilizing the existing holes on the left side frame rail, install the two mounting bolts into the frame through the mount and tighten with an impact or appropriate wrenches and sockets. Remove the engine from your hoist. Now you may tighten down the right side motor mounts. Finally, tighten the upper bolts holding the left side mount to the engine. Attach the throttle linkage to the associated piece on the engine using the attached hardware. Be sure to clock the engine bracket properly to allow for maximum throttle. Then, place the throttle cable in the bracket on the engine and tighten the jam nuts to secure it. Next, slide in your drive shaft and attach it to the engine's drive plate using the appropriate hardware. Installing the clutch cable comes next. Clip the cable lock into place on the transmission. Then, secure the line into place with the two nuts on the line. To attach the cable to the pedal assembly, route the cable behind the engine near the firewall. A conveniently placed ADO clamp at the rear of the engine will come in handy with routing the cable to the pedal. Secure the cable end to the firewall with the included jam nut. Then pull the cable slightly out and slide it into the receiving mechanism on the clutch pedal clevis itself. Bolt the clevis to the pedal and tighten the fasteners accordingly. Now we'll attach the cooling components to the car. First, you'll need to clamp the radiator tray into place and drill a hole into each frame rail to attach this piece. Locate it directly next to the rack supports already in place. When installing the hardware, you may need to utilize a washer or two in order to get a proper fit and prevent the tray from bowing. Now is a good time to install the small piece of rubber protection that came with your install kit onto the left side engine mount. Next, install the 90-degree silicone hose onto the back of the engine as seen here. Secure it to the motor with an included hose clamp. Place a second hose clamp on this hose for use in just a moment. Next, slide the aluminum water pipe into place between the engine and the left side mount. Slide the aluminum piece into the silicone hose and secure it with a hose clamp. After that, attach the small black hose from the engine to the smaller port on the aluminum tube, also securing the attachment with a hose clamp. Now, take the longer silicone hose and attach it to the front of the engine. Secure one hose clamp to the engine side and leave another clamp on it for the radiator we will install in just a moment. Slide the shortest silicone hose onto the aluminum tube, also placing two hose clamps onto the tube, but do not tighten them just yet. On the radiator you received in your kit, remove the adhesive covering and attach the rubber strip to the bottom of your radiator. The drain plug of the radiator should line up with the hole in the tray bracket we installed a little bit ago. Stand the radiator up onto its tray and slide the two silicone hoses onto their respective ports of the radiator. Once the radiator is positioned properly, secure any loose hose clamps on the cooling hoses. On the included support braces, drill a hole into each end for a fastener. We recommend using a vise or similar tool and not your hands. Finger tight each bracket to the frame and the radiator to help achieve a proper fit. Once satisfied, securely tighten the mounting hardware with the proper tools. Next, mount the overflow tank to the front of the engine with the supplied hardware. Once secured, open the fill port of the radiator with a wrench and do the same for the overflow tank's side plug. We'll be attaching hoses to these two ports. Wrap the aluminum pipe to AN fitting with Teflon tape on the straight pipe thread, and do the same for the brass barb fitting. Screw the blue adapter fitting into the radiator and use a wrench to tighten it down, being careful not to over-tighten and crack the radiator. Do the same with the brass barb fitting on the overflow tank, again being careful not to over-tighten the fitting and crack the tank. Take the blue hose assembly you received in your kit and attach it to the bottom fitting of the overflow tank and the top fitting of the radiator we just installed. Secure it with wrenches, being careful not to over-tighten and crack the fittings. Once installed, tighten the hose clamps over the end of each fitting. Now take the black braided hose on top of your new engine and trim it to length to fit the barb fitting on the overflow tank. Slide the hose over the fitting and secure it with one of the included hose clamps. Finally, take the piece of black braided hose you received in your kit and slide it over the barb near the cap of the overflow tank. You may secure this hose with a zip tie. Secure the end of the hose somewhere to allow overflow, such as the radiator brackets or the cowl area of your body. Now it's time to move on to the fuel system. You will receive 4 different hose assemblies in your conversion kit: a short, medium, and extra long hose with 90-degree fittings, and 1 hose with the 2 fittings pre-installed. You'll also receive a fuel filter and a regulator in the conversion kit. Drill a hole for the regulator approximately 3 inches to the right side of the rightmost support bracket and secure the regulator to the chassis with the included hardware. Locate your hole at an angle similar to your rear support hoops, not completely flat, yet not completely upright. If you currently run a steel fuel cell, you'll need to make some adjustments to your existing cell. First, remove the plate from the top of the fuel cell. Then, remove the vent assembly from the plate and place the plate in a vise or similar clamping device. Using a 1/2-inch drill bit, drill another hole in the top of the fuel cell plate. Replace the vent in this hole, sliding the unit onto the opening and tightening the bulkhead nut around the appropriate washers to secure the part. Finally, install the number 6 bulkhead fitting into the pre-existing hole your vent previously occupied. This fitting is a return from the regulator, so it will simply return unused fuel to the tank. Slide the fitting into the hole and tighten the bulkhead nut around the nylon washers. Once everything is secured, reinstall the fuel cell plate onto the cell and continue. Take the medium hose with 1 fitting and attach it to the fuel cell, being careful not to over-tighten. Next, attach the inside of the fuel filter to this hose using a hose clamp to secure the connection. Then, take the longest hose and connect it to the fuel pump, which mounts on the side of the fuel cell. Take the open end of this hose and attach it to the outside of the fuel filter and secure the attachment with a hose clamp. Install the final open-ended hose onto the barb on the back of the fuel pump, again using a hose clamp to secure the connection. Attach the 90-degree fitting to the inside of the regulator, the one on the driver's side, and secure it properly. Next, take the double-ended line and secure one end to the regulator's overflow port, the one facing the back of the car. The other fitting will go on the very top of the fuel cell, where any excess fuel can be recycled back into the system. Secure both connections with a wrench. For added security, tighten the included hose clamp on each line over the connection. Once the small work is done for the fuel system, you'll need to run your fuel line to the engine through the fuel line rail in your car. Feed the hose through until it's accessible at the front of the car. Attach a fitting to the hose like the other lines and attach this hose to the output of the regulator, securing it properly with hose clamps and a wrench. To attach the fuel line to the engine, use a fair amount of silicone paste to lubricate the engine fitting. Apply some to the hose as well. Next, slide the fitting into the hose as far as possible. Yes, it will be a tight fit and you may need a little assistance. Once installed, locate the fuel rail port, signified by a blue cover, and slide the fuel line onto it and secure the line by pressing a blue locking collar into place. Secure the fitting to the hose once again with a hose clamp. Now it's time to move on to the final part of your changeover, the electrical setup for the FZ09. Your conversion kit will come with 2 complete wiring harnesses, a fuse box, and 2 smaller wires. While it may seem intimidating at first, this will likely be the easiest part of the changeover. The wiring harness with the sheathing will be the one for your engine compartment, while your cockpit wires will be the harness with the fuse box attached. We highly recommend carrying spare fuses and relays in your toolbox so they're easy to find if you ever need them at the racetrack. Begin by installing the fuse box and its harness to the shelf in the cockpit of your race car in the holes provided with the appropriate hardware. On the left side of the box, closest to the clutch, be sure to install the rubber bushing to help dampen vibration and allow proper operation of your electrical system. Next, attach the ring terminals to the appropriate terminal posts as they're labeled on the harness. Post 1 is your red positive terminal, while post 2 is your black negative terminal. There will be 4 terminals to attach to the red block on the driver's side of the firewall. Slide the terminals onto the posts together, install the washer on top of them, and tighten down the nut to secure these posts. Slide the protective boot over the assembly when complete. Repeat the process with the single wire labeled post 2 or the other terminal. Next, find the 2 black wires with ring terminals labeled ground. These wires will attach to your old grounding point, usually on one of the braces behind the firewall. Slide the 2 terminals over the grounding screw, complete with washer on top, and attach the screw to your chassis grounding point. Now, find the 2 wires labeled start for your starter. Remove the screws from your starter button and attach these 2 wires to either of the terminals. In this case, it does not matter which wire goes on which terminal. Secure the screws back into the button when complete, and we'll move on to the other instruments. Locate the 2 wires labeled IGNSW or ignition switch. Again, remove the screws on the back of the switch and attach each of the 2 wires to the terminals. Like the starter, it does not matter which of these wires goes on which terminal. Now, locate the starter switch wire with the extra terminals on it. These terminals will power your indicator lights and other smaller instruments. Slide the terminals onto either side of your amber, green, and red indicator lights. Again, these terminals are not side-specific and may go on either terminal of the lights. After you've attached these wires, find the pink, yellow, and blue wires. The wire labeled MIL will go to your amber light. Your neutral indicator will attach to the green light, while the wire labeled oil will attach to the red light. For the final wires to attach under the dash, remove the actuator switch from the clutch pedal by removing the 2 large screws on the left side. Behind the actuator are 3 terminals. You'll use the upper terminal and your choice of a lower terminal for the clutch wires. Remove the tiny brass screws from each terminal and attach the two ring terminals for the clutch. Again, it does not matter which wire goes to which terminal. When complete, reattach the actuator switch to the clutch pedal assembly. Slide the two longer leads for the clutch into their receptor terminals, and now you're done assembling wires under the dash. Secure the wires neatly in a safe place such as underneath the dash panel using zip ties or similar wire management systems. You'll have 3 spare wires here to use for attaching tachometers or other gauges as desired. Next, mock up the harness port for the firewall. It will only attach one way, and we recommend aligning the engine side of the harness in a 90-degree orientation facing downward. Once you've determined the proper orientation for your harness plug, attach it to the firewall using 4 1/8 inch rivets. You'll notice you have a handful of extremely long wires remaining from the under dash harness. Take these wires and route them to the back of the car, for instance through the opening in the driveshaft tunnel. Make sure your master disconnect is turned off, and then take the thicker wire and attach it to the appropriate post of your master disconnect, the post where the main battery wire is not attached. Secure this wire appropriately with a wrench and move on to the smaller wire. Carefully snip the zip tie attachment and take the small black wire which is tied to the long wire and attach it to the fuel pump on the driver's side as we've done here, and then attach the other end to the mounting bolt for a proper grab. Next, take the small red wire and attach it to the remaining terminal on the fuel pump. Secure the terminal nut with a wrench and then manage any slack wire as appropriate with zip ties or similar items. Now we'll move under the hood. Again, while it may seem intimidating, most of these connectors are unique and difficult to attach to the wrong place. Take your time and be careful to install these correctly. Refer to your installation manual for additional details. Take the small wire with the leather pack style connector and red boot and attach it to the lower port of your rectifier. If you haven't done so already, you may also attach the engine harness to the upper port of the rectifier. Next, just like we did inside the car, attach the red wire, labeled post 1, to the red post with the included hardware. Cover the connection with the red boot once you've completed this task. By now you've likely surmised the other smaller wire will go on post 2, or the black post. Attach the end labeled post 2 to the terminal as we have the others, and cover with the boot. The opposite end of this wire attaches to the starter as labeled. Remove the nut and hardware from the starter terminal and slide this wire on, attaching the nut securely with a wrench or ratchet. Once completed, attach the screw-on harness to the port we attached to the firewall earlier. Take the wire cluster and lay it on top of the valve cover as seen here. Attach the map sensor to its appropriate port as seen here. The connectors are tight once you hear the click of the harness. Take each of the 3 black connectors on top of the valve cover and attach them to the coils. If you're worried about attaching the wrong ones, use the wire links as a guide for which connector goes to which cylinder. Next, take the gray connectors and attach them to the fuel injectors in a similar fashion. Next, we'll attach the throttle position sensors. Take the longer of the 2 wires and attach it to the port on the passenger side of the engine. The wire with the shorter available length attaches to the front of the motor. Take the connector with the green wire, your water temperature sensor, and attach it to its port near the front of the engine here. Attach the yellow wire to the idle speed motor as seen here. For the airbox, attach the brown and black wires to the adapter which goes into your airbox. Slide the sensor tube into the airbox and secure the unit with the included hardware. Attach the blue wire on your harness to the smaller wire which comes from the back of the transmission. The larger wire is for your shift indicator, which will attach in a similar fashion. Take the wire with the black and yellow connector off the back of the engine and attach it to the connector with the black and yellow terminals. Next, take the single wire gray connector from the harness and attach it to the single wire gray connector from the back of the engine. Now, find the orange wire and attach it to the back of the white block attached to the front of the engine. The motor should have an orange sticker, as seen here, near this port. One of the last few things we'll do is to find the first wire we attached to the rectifier at the beginning of this section. Locate the grounding spade and slide it into the white plug on the sheath wire. It should also click into place. Slide this assembly into the similarly shaped plug which is attached to the engine. Then we'll slide the level switch into its connector as seen here. Click it into place and we're almost done. You'll have one port that does not connect to anything here. This is a tech port for officials to check various settings of your machine and should be secured in an easy to access location. Finally, we will attach the ECU to the firewall. The ECU comes with 4 self-tapping sheet metal screws that attach it to the firewall, or you may choose to use bolts and nuts of your own. Locate the ECU with the plug facing down. Be careful not to tap through any other wires or mounts on the firewall when locating the ECU. Once the ECU is attached, insert the wiring harness plug and secure it by moving the lever into the locked position. Your conversion is now complete. Fill the cooling system with water, add oil to the engine, fill the tank with fuel, and you're ready to crank her up. As always, if you have tech questions, call your local dealer or our knowledgeable parts and tech department at US Legends Cars International. We're here to help you transition to the FZ09 as smoothly as possible. Thank you for racing a US Legend car, and we wish you the best of luck in your future races. We'll see you on track at a facility near you.